and let's talk a little bit about decentralized applications. We care a lot about your opinion after this talk. If you can go to near.ai/devweek and provide just binary opinion, whether the message resonates with you or it doesn't resonate with you, that would be very helpful. Let's first talk about composability. When we program today, when we build services, we use a lot of components, right? We use microservices, we use open source libraries, we use APIs, and most of those APIs and libraries, they exist today and they drive innovation because of open source movement. Whenever you install anything from npm or pip, each of those libraries is open source. And the fact that they're open source is what allows us to enhance them, to build upon them, and to continue innovating. In a modern service, such as Uber or Instagram or any other application or service you use, each of them is not a huge monolithic service. Each of them consists of hundreds and thousands of microservices. Those microservices could be super simple. It could be something as simple as converting PDF to CSV, or they could be pretty big. Many of those microservices are just code, and then you can just download them from somewhere. But often today, the core value of the service that you use is not the code of the service, it's the state. If you use Facebook API today, it's not the code of the Facebook API that actually provides value. It's the data that Facebook has that is valuable. If you use Google Maps API, it's not the code of Google Maps API alone, it's the data that Google possesses. The services that use today within Uber, within Google, with other corporations, they're mostly proprietary. We have no access to them. And if you look at the history of how the world was evolving, whenever Google or any other corporation had something which is very meaningful for the society built internally, it would usually, within a short period of time, appear in an open source. Whenever Google had, for example, Drupal, then we had Parquet. And that is not happening with the services that are stateful. If Google has if Facebook has a social graph, we cannot go and create an open social graph outside of Facebook. And that brings us to the second problem, which is data ownership. Who possesses the data that we as a society create? Today, if you think about Facebook, if you think about Google, all the data belongs to them, even though we, the users, create it. A very easy example is consider an Uber driver that joins Uber and drives for 100 rides, builds up a reputation, and then for any reason, they decide to switch from Uber to Lyft. That could be just desire to use a different service, or it could be because Uber, using some non-transparent policies, banned the driver. When the driver starts for Lyft, they have one ride and they have zero reputation. All the data that they created for Uber is now lost. In a perfect world, where everything is open, the way it should be is that the driver joins Uber, they use Uber code to drive for Uber, but the data belongs to them, right? And then they can transfer the data or give permission to use the data to any other service. And we produce a lot of such data. Every time you go to Google and you Google something, and then you click a link, that's an invaluable information for Google search engine. Both Google and Bing at some point made an experiment where they've disabled every single feature of their ranking engine, except for the feature that looks at the database of all the queries ever queried and checked which link was clicked. And that search engine built just on that feature, just a blind lookup of the similar queries, is performing almost as well and is a usable search engine as the search engine which uses all the other features. Now, Google has a ridiculous amount of that information. There's billions of queries issued every day, but DuckDuckGo does not. Right? So now the search engine, which is built with more open standards, cannot use any of that information and cannot possibly be as good as Google because that information is invaluable. The more data Google gets, the better service they can build, the more data they can acquire from users who join because of the better service. The problem is that then the competition loses. You can think that this is not a problem for society because we still have a very good search engine, but it actually is a problem because once Google becomes a monopoly, and they're already a monopoly, they have no incentive to innovate. As a good data point, back in 2009, you can remember when Microsoft rebranded Live Search into Bing, they invested heavily into making Bing better. And at that particular point, there was a short period of time when Bing was almost as good as Google. At that point, I was working for Bing, and I had all the access to all the internal information. And there was a chart on which Microsoft was tracking the search relevance of Google and the search relevance of Bing. And up until the moment when Microsoft rebranded Bing, Google was improving very slowly. The moment Bing appeared and Google realized that Bing is becoming a threat, Google search relevance also started increasing significantly faster. Right? The absence of DuckDuckGos and Bings on the world today is slowing down Google. And that happens all across all the industries. Right? Facebook and Instagram will dominate social networking for as long as they control the data of users. Google will control the social media. How can we solve it? That is something we're trying to research and figure out how that can work. The biggest thing we believe in is that we need to move from open source, which was driving innovation for the last decades, to open state, where the service code and the service state are separated and the state belongs to the users. And then users can always choose who controls their state, how to use that state, and whom to transfer it to. This way, if you search and click on Google, that data goes to you. It belongs to you, and you can at any point authorize DuckDuckGo, Bing, or any other search engine that you like to use that data and improve upon it. The second thing we believe in is that the microservices, they today don't exist partially in the open community because they're very hard to maintain. If you ask any friend of yours who is maintaining an open source library or a hosted API or any other service available to the society, that's a huge commitment. That takes a lot of effort to maintain the code, to go through the issues, to make sure that the service don't go down. There's very little reward, right? People don't pay today for using microservices. And so that's why the innovation does not happen as quickly in the open source community, and is primarily concentrated within the walled gardens. So we believe that there is a way to build microservices in such a way that they get monetized. Whenever you do anything on the internet, someone pays for it. If you use Facebook, you're paying for that by watching ads and using your data. If you use Google, again, the same thing, right? And at the same time, on the other end, the company that serves service for you, they also pay for it. They pay for the servers. They pay for employees that build the code. So someone pays for every single transaction that happens. And if that is all built in a very organized manner, it would be possible to get part of that transaction fee that already occurs to go to every microservice owner in the world, which might, in principle, create a infrastructure on which people can build open services on top of open services, and then publicly facing products can be built on that large set of available microservices, where everyone gets properly motivated and incentivized to maintain their code and data. So that's what we believe in. That's what we're trying to build. And if you can go to the link near AI/DevWeek and just vote yes or no if you think that this is something meaningful and that's how the world should progress, or no. If that's not supposed to be the case, that would be super helpful. We're going to be at the hackathon. You can see where we are and how to build with us and how to bring that vision of open services and open state to reality. So please find us. Thank you.